and welcome. You're watching Head to Head. I'm Antonina Antosha with UATV. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has discussed the current situation in Donbas with U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine negotiations Volker and U.S. Ambassador to the EU Gordon Sondland, in particular, the process of the disengagement of forces and weapons near the village of Stanytsia Luhanska. Also, they were discussing the recent parliamentary elections in Ukraine and reforms. As of now, the United States and Ukraine continue to prepare for the visit of President Zelensky to Washington. To discuss the priorities of the new president's foreign policy, we welcome to our studio today Tetiana Gaiduk. She's the head of Analytical Projects at TRUMAN Agency. Hello and thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having me here.
So on July 25th, President Trump called President Zelensky and congratulated him on the victory of his party, the People's Servants Party, at the snap parliamentary elections. And they also, well, it's known that they had a little phone conversation. They also discussed NATO. What else was on the agenda of this telephone conversation?
Yeah, definitely. President Trump congratulated his Ukrainian counterpart with fair and democratic elections in Ukraine, and especially with the strong win of the presidential party, Servant of the People, in the parliamentary elections. The president also confirmed a continued support of the United States of sovereignty, territorial integrity of Ukraine, and President Zelensky in his turn thanked President Trump for U.S. leadership in maintaining and strengthening sanctions pressure on Russia. As far as I know, the conversation was pretty long, as U.S. Ambassador to the European Union, Gordon Sondland, who before and after the conversation talked to both of the presidents, said that conversation has been pretty successful and the presidents have found common ground. Actually, here I have to say that at the initiative of Donald Trump, the whole pool of American diplomats are working under so-called Ukrainian issues. And these issues are about fighting corruption, rule of law, energy security issues, and so on. That's why I may assume that these issues were also raised in the question, in the conversation between the two presidents. And you know, even if the subject of the conversation didn't go far beyond what was published later in the official site of the presidential office, there were a couple of messages from the President Trump that made me feel a bit of alarming. And I mean this confidence of American president that new Ukrainian leadership will make Ukrainian reputation and image of Ukraine in the United States better, and then it will complete the investigations regarding some corruption cases that held back U.S.-Ukraine cooperation.
We'll talk about this in detail a little bit later. For now, I would like to come back to the part when you mentioned the U.S. Ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland, speaking to Volodymyr Zelensky and President Trump before and after the phone conversation. Well, after visiting Stanytsia Luhanska here in Ukraine, Mr. Sondland also spoke to UATV, and we have a soundbite, so let's take a listen what he had to say.
Well, we're very optimistic that President Zelensky and his team are taking it seriously. We've had conversations with Ukraine that far predated my tenure as U.S. ambassador, and it reminded us of Groundhog Day. We'd watch the movie over and over, and the same conversations would happen. They were happy conversations, but nothing changed. President Zelensky was very mindful of that. That's really one of the things he ran on. And we're very confident that he takes these changes seriously. He's going to implement them in record time, and the U.S. is going to be right there with him, supporting him.
You also mentioned that President Trump said that, expressed his hope that new Ukrainian governance is going to boost Ukrainian image abroad and in the U.S. as well. In your opinion, what should be done by the new Ukrainian government, if I may say so, to improve the image of Ukraine abroad on the international arena?
You know, after the start of Russian aggression, it's Ukrainian authorities, Ukrainian leadership understandably made security aspect a top priority in their relations with the United States. But our partners in the United States put it clear. Ukraine needs reforms, not only its armed forces. So rule of law, fighting corruption, de-oligarchizing of the political system, economic reforms, reforming energy sector by unbundling the Naftogaz, and of course a settlement around Donbas. Now Ukrainian leaders, President Zelensky and his party has all the power in the country. That is why there are no excuses why the reforms should be rolled back. That is why we're all looking forward for the first steps of Ukrainian administration. So not only the US partners will strengthen their support of Ukraine, but also the Ukrainians themselves, those part who are still skeptical about the new leadership, will feel much strong support for Ukraine.
In any case, the reforms, the numerous reforms, I would like to point that out, the numerous reforms are underway in Ukraine. Some of them are very successful, like decentralization. Others are a little bit lagging behind, and it's no surprise. My question is, if the reforms are not fulfilled completely by, let's say, the year that has been estimated in the official papers, does that mean that the support from the United States and even other international partners is also rolling back?
I believe so, because we have to understand the next foreign policy trend we're facing with. The support of international partners for Ukraine will depend less on Russian aggression, as it was before, but more on the Ukrainian success that it will be able to demonstrate. That's why reforms are way too important to get the support.
The United States of America is not the only vital international partner for Ukraine. There is also European Union and China, and all of those countries need individual approach in order to build sustainable and strong bilateral relations in between Ukraine and those countries. What needs to be done by the new government to build the right kind of relationship with those also important international partners for Ukraine?
You know, the current external conjuncture makes it possible, for example, to relaunch relations with the European Union, for example, almost from the scratch. As Ukraine has a new president, a new parliament, will soon have a new government. The European institutions also voted for the new leadership. That is why the main task for President Zelensky and his team now is to establish good relations with EU leaders and to find allies in the EU institutions. Among the biggest expectations of not only our foreign partners but also from the Ukrainian voters is for President Zelensky to prove his independence from Ukrainian oligarchs, especially from Ihor Kolomoisky, who many believe has a certain degree of influence over the president.
Do you think that's possible? None of the presidents of Ukraine have managed to prove their independence from oligarchs.
To take his own decisions, to make right appointments. So that will be the first signal to our Western partners that he is independent. Now we don't see that.
Speaking of President Zelensky, the fact that he is so-called no name and a new face in politics, I mean, and the fact that he openly lacks experience in politics, is this a pro or a contra for Ukraine on the list?
It's not easy to answer this because, of course, we see this appetite for new faces. And, of course, we need that a man for such a position has to meet some basic requirements to fulfill it. So let's see.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for inviting.
That was Tetiana Gaiduk. She's the head of Analytical Projects at TRUMAN Agency. Thank you so much for watching UATV. Stay tuned for more.